Alright, welcome back. This is Chris's News and Politics, and I'm here to bring you another long explanation about what's happening in the news and political world. It's been a while since the last time I've made a video. I do apologize about that, but I will be pumping out a lot more content in the future, and also ways that you guys can support me. So if you guys like this video that you're about to listen to, be sure to subscribe, like the video, and share with family and friends. Alright, let's get right into this. So, by the title, you guys should already have an idea where I'm going with this, but we're talking about the crisis at the border and the chain of events that led to... I actually have a pre-plan set out now, so I'm not actually just speaking my mind on everything that I'm saying and like looking at the articles. We have the crisis at the border and the chain of events that lead to where we are now with illegal immigrants and the problems that we need to face with illegal immigrants that I guess some people, mostly on the Democratic Party, just don't want to address. In fact, they've actually willingly stated that they want to give illegal immigrants health care because health care is now, I guess, a God-given right, even though it hasn't been ever since the creation of humanity. And maybe with the creation of the welfare state in FDR's era, maybe healthcare became a right at that point, because then people became directly dependent upon the federal government to give them the social services that they needed to sustain or live a life. Now, I don't agree with any of those policies, and I don't think the American people, for the most part, are willing to agree with those policies either, because it's not my job to put food on your family's table. Do you see where I'm going with that? Alright, so jumping into... That was just like a little side tangent. The real main point that I'm trying to get to about is about the crisis at the border. So, about 4 months ago, the news media and most of the mainstream media was saying that Trump was lying about the crisis at the border and that he was over-exaggerating. And here you have an article from... This is just recent. It was updated. It was actually created recently and updated from Bloomberg News, where it's titled "Trump says border facility problems are exaggerated, calls to make asylum claims harder." And here's the thing. To a certain extent, this is very true. And what I mean by this is that these problems are exaggerated. What he's talking about are the conditions of these facilities. What you're seeing on TV is people don't have clean beds, people don't have clean sheets, they sometimes can't even use the restroom, and they don't even have toothbrushes, they don't have ways to clean themselves, they don't have showers, hot food, you know, stuff like this, right? Some of those claims, legitimately true, and for all of which I am against the Trump administration for allowing those things to continue onward. But see, here's where things get a little bit tricky. See, these claims, I'm not going to read this. I mean, for the most part, it's like Trump just saying, I mean, here they go again, trying to frame me for everything. And to a certain extent, he's right. I don't think this article goes into, if I remember correctly, it talks about the emergency spending. Okay, that's good, because we're going to get into that later. Okay, so what I'm really trying to get at here is that the crisis at the border, or the conditions of the border holding facilities, is, yes, a legitimate problem. However, it has been a legitimate problem ever since the creation of those facilities. And in fact, a law passed under the Obama administration permitted the facilities to ration down on the amount of benefits, or not really benefits, but the necessities that people at the border needed, so that they could, sleep on a nice bed, have hot or cold food, and be able to take care of themselves, like have genuine personal hygiene. This was stuff passed under the Obama administration. I believe I can go look it up, and I can drop a link right here, right below as I'm speaking, and you guys can go check it out for yourselves. This was stuff that was passed under the Obama administration, and for years before that, nothing was done about it. And years after that, nothing was done about it. But until Trump gets into the White House and he starts screaming bloody murder that there's crisis at the border and no one's paying attention, and then finally we get this. We get people on the... let me do that. Here we go. It feels like a jail. Lawmakers criticize migrant holdings at the border. So finally, the cacophony of Orange Man screaming that stuff is happening at the border has come to a conclusion, and it's somehow his fault. So let's break that down. Here's Don Lemon about, I would say, I have to listen to this for a second too. Here's Don Lemon about, I don't know, January? This was Don Lemon January. Just keep this in mind when you're watching this clip.
This is day 27 now of the shutdown. Day 27, thousands of government workers who have bills to pay, families to feed, just like the rest of us. They're forced to go out and work for free, not get paid. The President and the Speaker of the House doing hand-to-hand combat. I mean, going back and forth. I'm going to tell you about how the day unfolded. The President's former attorney admitting that he paid thousands to rig polls in favor of candidate Trump. The President's current attorney conceding the Trump campaign may have colluded with Russia, while insisting the President did not. Is anybody feeling good about any of this, about all of this? Well, as I said last night, maybe this guy is.
Okay, so enough with the whole Donald Trump colluded with Russia dealio that we've been getting in the news for God knows how long. It finally came out that, Robert Mueller threw the hammer down, and the hammer was inconclusive. And the Democrats got mad, and now they want to indict him, and they're forcing him to come speak for a committee, or he'll be prosecuted. So, there's that. So that's why you have stuff like this. Pelosi's making a mistake on starting impeachment, is making a mistake by not starting impeachment proceedings, right? That's why you have stuff like that, because some Democrats still believe to some of the most ridiculous degrees that Trump is guilty, even though a 200-page report that thoroughly stated that Trump definitely did not collude with Russia. But he may, due to his Twitter rants, have threatened to obstruct justice, but there wasn't enough significant evidence to say that he obstructed justice, so we're just going to leave it to the committees. That's what Robert Mueller said. Robert Mueller. In essence, what does that mean? It means that Mueller wasn't responsible, or Mueller did not want to take responsibility for dropping the hammer on Trump, and he didn't have enough evidence to do it. So he was like, well, you know what? I'll just leave it up to the committees, and they can make it. But here's the thing: he didn't find any significant evidence. So then, where's the evidence? There isn't any. That's the point, right? Is that maybe there was some rants on Twitter where he kind of where Trump overstepped his bounds, but he never intentionally. He may have pandered to the public on Twitter that he was pissed off that he was getting investigated and that he may do something about it. But then, behind the scenes, Trump never did anything to obstruct the investigation against him. He was very open about it. So you really can't impeach a president who was willingly going forward with an investigation that was started on a Steele dossier that was paid for by... You get where I'm going with that, right? Okay. In essence, encompassing all of that, we have this new hot take on radical Democrats saying that the border facilities are hot garbage and that they need to be fixed. I actually agree with them to an extent, because from the conditions that I've been seeing, from the conditions that I've been getting reports on, they look egregious. However, like I stated before, these were policies that were put in place once these people were elected. If they really wanted to do something about it, they wouldn't have sat there and obstructed funding for border security. And instead said, hey, you know what, guys? These people are actually living in their own sewage. How about we help them out? You know what I mean? But they didn't do that. They pandered, like this woman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So, here's what AOC did. Because she visited a southern border facility in or a migrant border facility in Texas, and this is what happened. She visited the said facility, and then she was saying that these people, or first of all, here's the order of court. Here's the order of what happened. So Trump says there's a crisis at the border 4 months ago. Everyone says, no, that's not true. Don Lemon's like, no, that's not true. So much so that when the government shuts down because Trump wants his money, people are like, look at what he's doing now. All these government workers aren't getting their paychecks, all because of his makeshift theory that there's a crisis at the border. And then, by golly, sure enough, here we are in the present, and there's a crisis at the border. Oh, who was right? It was Trump. You know what? I gotta give it to the man. I don't like him on everything, but at least he was right about this. You know what I'm saying? Credit is given where credit is due. And Trump deserves credit. Yet he's being blamed for the conditions at these facilities, yet they're not getting funded by the Democrats that claim that they want to make these facilities better. Just like this woman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So like I said, time of events, crisis at the border, everyone, there's no crisis. When it comes to funding the crisis at the border, we're not going to fund it because there is no crisis. And then, oh my God, there's a crisis at the border, let's do something about it. Let's pass an emergency spending bill, $4.6 billion, aimed at improving conditions for migrants. This was upheld in Congress. Not in Congress, in the House of Representatives. People like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib voted against giving the $4.6 million to improving the conditions at the border. These are the people that we see pandering on Twitter. I'm trying to find the tweet. That's why I stopped. It's not July 6th. It's July... Psychological. Because in her tweet she says psychological warfare. Not because she's a psycho. She may very well be after I finish evaluating this. Okay, so we got... Let's see. I had it and I don't have it anymore. Oh, here we go. So, this is what we're talking about here. Just left the first CBP facility. I see why CBP officers are being so physically and sexually threatening towards me. Okay, I didn't know. Oh, moving on. Officers were keeping women in cells with no water, and I told them to drink out of the toilets. Okay, hold on a second. The whole toilet fiasco in itself is just misconstrued context. Now, granted, it may have been a language barrier that prevented the woman from actually drinking out of the fountain, and she didn't know how the fountain worked. Because from what I've seen, you have a toilet, and then a unit directly connected to that toilet on top of it, which was a faucet. And she didn't know how to use the faucet, so she drank out of the toilet. That was the direct account from CBP. Now, I'm not going to trust everything that CBP says, but I'm sure as hell not going to trust the person that... I'm sure as hell not going to trust the person that denied emergency funding to these facilities to make them better. And then she's justifying it because CBP's a bunch of evil people in bowler hats that just want to, I guess, sexually abuse the people that live in the facilities. What? All you're doing is you're pandering to your base. You're not really pandering to the people moderate people who genuinely care about the humanitarian crisis that's happening at the border, and you're not doing anything about it. You didn't vote in favor of the bill. You threw it, you shut it down, or you tried to shut it down, and then your justification for shutting it down was that CBP was a rogue agency. You see the logic in that? There isn't any, actually. All she's doing is she's trying to hold her word against CBP, and then she's saying, you're either with me or you're against the migrants. But, lady, I mean, you didn't fund the facilities to make the migrants' lives better and the holding facility. Well, I mean, it's because they're evil. They all began sobbing out of fear of being punished, out of sickness, out of depression, lack of sleep, trauma, despair. What's haunting me is that women I met with today told me in no uncertain terms that they would experience retribution for telling us what they shared. Would they? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But what I can tell you is that she's a political hack because she staged photos of herself outside of a chain link fence staring into a blank parking lot. I kid you not. I kid you not if this will load. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But these are the tweets right here. Maybe I'll let them load. Maybe it'll take a second. Okay. While that's loading, I'll state this. There we go. I switched right back over. Here we go. Here are the photos of Ocasio-Cortez standing in disbelief as she stares into a blank parking lot. And I swear to God, it's a blank parking lot. Like, what? What is this? This is a car. You're staring at that? You're telling me you're making that face staring at the car? You know what I mean? This is just pandering. If you truly cared about these people at the border, you would have funded the emergency fund. You would have supported the emergency funding to make sure that the conditions at the border were better. But yet you're standing here and trying to get likes on Twitter. Modern day politician, man. I mean, this is some evil stuff. This is cynical stuff because she's not only trying to get your vote. She's trying to get you to think that this was the right decision. Not giving money to CBP, right decision. Even though the conditions at the border won't change without it doesn't matter. Right decision. Right decision, man. God. Where am I at now? Yeah, like I said, most of the conditions at the border, they were like that under the Obama administration. As soon as she came into office after the midterm elections of 2018, why wasn't she looking into this stuff? Oh, I'm sorry, it's because she and others believed that Trump was a cuckoo crazy bastard, a cuckoo crazy orange man, who apparently was stating lies about the border, and then sure enough, he was the only one that was telling the truth, and everyone now is blaming him for telling the truth. He didn't have the money to do anything about it. But I digress, and we move on. So, I already talked about the fact that she's obstructing this on her own. Her, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, all of these radical left Democrats that are moving into the House, all they're doing is they're pandering to the radical left and they're not supporting the moderate Democrat. So what's going to happen? The moderate Democrat is going to feel alienated from their party and they're going to vote somewhere else. And there's really only one other place to vote, and that's Republican. So I ask you, from a political race standpoint, if we're racing to be president of the United States, who is going to get you that vote? The handful of radical Democrats, or the tubload or the truckload full of moderate Democrats on top of the average American? Because the moderate Democrat and the farm working conservative, those are going to comprise of many more people than the radical Democrat. I don't know why this presupposition, or I don't know why the news is trying to get into our head, like mainstream news is trying to persuade us that radical Democrats exist everywhere, but they're few and far in between. I can't believe it. So now we have this article, AOC, because the actual confrontation at the border, when, those agents were being sexually, what were the words that she said? Was it, sexually... Oh, here's the psychological warfare tweet. I'll read that out for a second. Okay, she talks about the Facebook group of CBP agents and how they're sexist and racist and everything, every other bad word you could call them to try and take down the Facebook page. Look, I don't care what's going on that Facebook page. As long as they aren't calling to shoot up something or kill people, they have the right to say it because it's a platform. And the platform directs under the First Amendment. Okay, moving on. Sexually threatening towards her. These agents that were being sexually threatening towards her. Apparently, one of the agents laughed at something else out of context. Ocasio-Cortez took that as she was getting laughed at and then started berating them. That is the story. I kid you not, that is the story. And then they just sat there and they did nothing because if they said something, it'd probably be bad for the tour. You know what I'm saying? Then moving on, we have this, after I forced myself into a cell and began speaking with a woman, one of them described their treatment at the hands of officers as psychological warfare. Again, tell me, what about this is due to a lack of funding? Well, Ocasio-Cortez, I'll tell you what about this is due to a lack of funding. It's the fact that you are fabricating this. Because this report from the Washington Examiner says that the exact opposite of what you're tweeting out to these 230,000 people that apparently took, and 69,000 people that retweeted it, that took your comments and they ate it up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they said, you know what, I'm sold. ICE, CBP, bad agency, rogue agency. Because this is her justification. She blocked funding to CBP, and then she went down to the border and she reports back that, oh, they're using psychological warfare against the immigrants that are in the housing facilities, and that's the reason why I didn't fund them. Oh yeah, sure. I mean, now you can make a reason because hindsight's 20/20. Am I right? You know what I mean? Yet on her tour, she was basically shouting at them in a threatening manner. Like, I don't get it, man. I really don't. And not only that, but moving on to the next point, AOC and Democrats were told repeatedly that this illegal immigrant, not undocumented immigrants, but illegal immigrants, had overwhelmed the border. And now they act surprised. It's like, yeah, you didn't think for 4 months when Trump was saying that there's something going on at the border that maybe you should listen? Instead, you just called him crazy, a conspiracy theorist. And then when he was right, you blamed Trump because it's his fault that he couldn't fund the border? Yes, to a degree, it is Trump's fault that he didn't fund the border, because he could have used executive power if he wanted to, which he almost did. He almost got the National Guard under a national emergency to build the wall. Now, I don't think that was the right move, because I don't think the reason that it was a national emergency was because people were crossing the border illegally. I think it was because of the fact that they were getting released into the interior, in which they weren't returning back from their court hearings. Bottom of the line. That's the reason why I think. But then you have senators like Cory Booker here, or presidential candidate Cory Booker, who apparently, according to the Daily Caller, was helping asylum seekers cross the border from Juarez. What is he doing on the other side of the border? So reading this tweet from Sabrina Singh, out of concern for the asylum seekers' safety, we did not make this event public until now. Cory was able to observe the crossing, interactions with federal immigration authorities, and see the disastrous impact of the President Trump's cruel immigration policy. Okay, so here's the apex of President Trump's immigration policy. The apex is that he redefined what seeking asylum was. Because if these people are coming from Honduras, if these people are coming from South America, if these people are coming from anywhere south of Mexico, and they're coming through Mexico to seek asylum in the United States, why can't they be in Mexico? That was his argument. He said if they're seeking asylum from these bad places south of Mexico, why is Mexico not a good place to seek asylum from it? The only place the cartels have influence on is outside of main cities. And when you put it like that, I mean, that still sounds pretty bad, right? But to a migrant who's going to work in a city to make money, or an asylum seeker, do you think that it matters if they're in the United States or if they're in Mexico? No, it doesn't matter where they are, as long as they're safe and they're making money, right? That should be the right answer. However, for some reason, they're coming to the United States because they want to work in the United States. Why do you think that is? Well, if you have Senator Cory Booker, which I believe since, he agreed to healthcare for all, is telling these people that if you come to the United States, you will get all of these benefits. Who wouldn't want free money from the government? If you're an asylum seeker that's running away from home and you have to start from scratch, I'd want free money too. The problem is, where does that money come from? Because it's not free. It's not free at all. It comes from the taxpayer. It comes from the middle class. The most amount of people in the entire economic system in the United States. The middle class. They're going to reap and sow the costs of funding these programs that these migrants will use and abuse. Don't think that they'll abuse them, because there's plenty of people. I came from... Here's a side story. I grew up in a suburban town, and I was attending high school, and we're having my physics teacher was having a discussion with the class about, do people really use their money wisely? And it was a low to middle class community that we were having this discussion in. So some of the kids said, well, yeah. So a majority of our high school is comprised of like maybe 70% Mexican, 20% black, and then like 10% white, something like that. So we're very diverse, as people on the left would say. We're very diverse. My physics teacher was a white person, but it shouldn't matter, I personally believe, because she just asked one simple question. Do you think people really use their money effectively? And I think the answer is no, because of those 70% Hispanic people that attended our school in high school, I could guarantee you that most of them were low class. And that's not just by looking at them. That's by the fact that they're rocking $300 Jordans, but yet they're the same kids that are signing up for free lunch at school. Why? Why is that? That's the problem. They are abusing the system. That's the point I'm trying to make. So there are people that not everyone's trying to abuse the system. I don't want to put this idea in your head that every single illegal immigrant is trying to abuse the system. There are immigrants out there that want to go through the process correctly. They want to make a difference in America. They want to make America a better place, and they want to help. They want to become successful too, chasing the American dream, right? Hard work equals success. That's the American dream. But they're few and far in between compared to the amount of people that are just flooding these migrant facilities, stating that they want asylum when they've come through Mexico, which is a safe place. Mexico City is a beautiful place. For less than $500 a month, you can own a house, and on top of that, all of the utilities that go with it. Compared to the United States, where you're not going to get an apartment under probably $700, unless you're like in some really, really deserted area. I don't know. Sorry, I'm talking a lot. My point is, senators like Cory Booker here, who are literally helping people cross the border. Oh, lie wasn't in there. I'm trying to think why this article is important. Okay, this is why it was important. Because he helped escort 5 asylum seekers and try to prevent them from being sent back to Mexico. What's so bad about being sent back to Mexico if they're seeking asylum from Honduras or Juarez? Sorry, not Juarez. But if they're seeking asylum from south of Mexico. Like gang violence in Brazil. By the way, if you stay away from the favelas in Brazil, Brazil is a beautiful place. I don't think that you would have any issue living there, as long as you stay away from the favelas where the gangs are. And in fact, there's a reason why Brazil is changing for the better. It's because their democratic president, who is letting the gangs operate, has now been literally impeached and replaced with a more conservative president. You don't believe me? I'll look it up for you, and I'll put it in the description. Because I'm dead serious. The reason why the soccer, or was it the World Cup, the Brazil World Cup, the FIFA World Cup in Brazil was so corrupt and the officials were so corrupt is because the gangs were operating in it. That's what articles were saying at the time. And you know who let those articles, you know who let those officials get corrupt? The Brazilian government, which was democratic at the time. So, going back to this, what's wrong with Juarez? What's wrong with Mexico City? What's wrong with any suburban center in Mexico? What's wrong with living there? It's cheaper to live there, and you could probably find a job easy. Well, I think it's because these senators are telling these citizens that, or these asylum seekers, that they can get benefits if they live in America. So if we move on, I already talked about the toilet incident. The toilet incident was legitimately, this was the tweet, cells with no water and told them to drink out of the toilets. No, I think there was miscommunication because, like I said, there's a faucet, sink, and toilet, and they're all one unit. She didn't understand how to operate the faucet, and maybe she drank out of the toilet. I don't think CBP agents are forcing people to drink out of the toilets. I think this is Ocasio-Cortez's explanation as to why CBP is a rogue agency and she didn't fund them because of that. Even though she refused to fund the border crisis, even after it became mainstream news. And then she went to Twitter to try and explain herself and walk backwards on the deal. So, the last kind of thing I want to talk about is, what does this mean about AOC's motives? What does this mean about the far left Democrats' motives? What are their motives when it comes to being in the House or being in Congress or trying to potentially be president? Sorry. I think it's just because she wants power. She's never had a taste of power. She said it herself. She was bartending literally a year ago. Or a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And now she's sitting in the House of Representatives representing people who voted for her. And she's just trying to push all the buttons and see what they do and see how far she can go. That's what I believe. And the reason why I believe that is because you have her justifying not funding the border crisis, which she has berated Trump for not doing anything about. Yet, he can't do anything without money, without federal funding. Yet, she defunded him for it. She voted against it. That just sounds like flip-flopping, if you ask me. Like, oh, it's Trump's fault that the crisis at the border is happening right now. Well, I mean, is it Trump's fault? Because if it was Trump's fault, then why for 3 months did no Democrat vote on anything? Why did we go into going into the new year did we have to go into a government shutdown? Well, it's because you guys didn't want to agree that there's a crisis at the border. That was the bottom line. So much so that Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi came on national TV after the president's emergency meeting with the people on television. Kind of like those firesides with Roosevelt. They came on and they said, President Trump's antics should be no more. That's what they said. Something along those lines, right? That the crisis at the border was just a fabricated crisis. We've been told this for literally, I don't know how long we've been told that. And then up until about a month ago, people were like, okay, there's a crisis at the border, and guess what? It's Trump's fault. I don't get it, man. Look, don't take my word for it. Just look at the fact that she was exposed for staging this. She was exposed for saying that she felt so sad about the people at the border that she just had to post this on Instagram or on Twitter. And yet it came out that she staged it all in front of a parking lot. You can kind of look here too. Where is this? Where is that? You know what I mean? People have questions. Even people on the left. People have berated her on the left, and they said, why are you just standing there? How about you do something about it? And they're right. They're absolutely right. Because standing there and doing nothing ain't gonna fix it. Maybe passing legislation, I don't know, maybe funding, maybe, know what I mean? Legislation that fixes the conditions at the border, maybe funding that helps them administer the conditions at the border to make them better, stuff like that. But hey, I'm just a college kid who likes doing politics. Who likes talking about politics, man. If I can't do it, maybe I can't do it because I'm not well informed. Maybe I can't. There's a hefty load of sarcasm there, by the way, because I'm talking about this as people are standing there doing nothing. If you want to do something about this, go talk to your local representative. Go talk to your local senator. I'm sure that they'd be more than willing to hear your request. And if they just, oh yes, thank you. Thank you for your input. And they don't say anything anymore, well then you know what their true motives are. Because it ain't about helping the humanitarian crisis on the border. It's not about helping those people that are in egregious conditions. I'll tell you that. This was a kind of long video today, but I appreciate you guys sticking around and watching it. Like I said, I'll be working on some ways that you guys can reach out to me. I know my Minds page already has a way that you can support me on there. On my Minds page as well, if you go and check it out, it's minds.com/CHRDell2814. You can, there's a wallet, like an Ethereum wallet, if you want to pay me in like Ethereum. I don't have Bitcoin, but I probably should get a Bitcoin. You could follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on, gosh, I think I have a Twitter. I just started my Twitter. Like, this account that I have right here, this account is my personal account. But, I mean, I have the same profile picture for both of them, so. But, I'll link my Twitter and that video on Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi stating that the crisis at the border was, false. I'll link all that in the description. Anyways, guys, I hope that you enjoyed listening to my, I guess, kind of rant. I'm just a little upset, man. Just a little bit. You know, these guys are talking about how they want to make the world a better place, and yet here we have a person on the side making the world a better place stating that she won't fund the crisis at the border because she doesn't want to do it. It's just silly, man. It's just silly stuff. This is political pandering. This isn't actual politics. So, I really appreciate you guys sticking around for this one. Like I said, I'll put all the links in the description and probably like a paste bin little link. So, yeah, go ahead and check it out yourself, guys. I'm not making any of this up. I don't, by what means do I need to make this stuff up? You know what I mean? What would be my motive to make this stuff up? I'm just sick and tired of standing here while news article after news article after news article just berates somebody who has been calling this out for 4 months as responsible for it. He was trying to warn us. And like I said, man, I don't like Trump, but if the guy's right, and you gotta give him credit for it. And stop pushing this nonsense of Orange Man bad. Because that's all I see. That is literally all I see. Orange Man bad on literally every mainstream left-leaning news outlet. They just can't take the L, guys. That's literally it. So, thank you guys for watching. I know I've said that like literally 3 times and then I went on a side tangent. But thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next video.